bigger isn't always stronger, and stronger doesn't always mean bigger. So today, we're gonna break down hypertrophy versus strength. What's the difference, and how can we use both to maximize our training? Let's get into it, guys. So hypertrophy equals our bigger muscles. It's all about increasing the size of the muscle, not necessarily the strength of the muscle. It's not necessarily about how much weight we can lift, but just how big can we get that muscle. And then strength equals more force output. That just basically means we want to increase the ability for our body and muscles to produce force, generate force. Because then if we have more force generated, we can push heavier loads. So when talking about hypertrophy, our body will stimulate muscle protein synthesis. Now, what is muscle protein synthesis? Muscle protein synthesis is just about our body creating more muscle protein. It's how our body builds and repairs muscle tissue after training. We create little microscopic fiber damage within our muscles, and then our body responds to this by repairing those breakages in our muscle fibers, but then making them bigger. And this makes it bigger and then stronger to adapt more because our body adapts, right? And then this creates muscle protein synthesis. Muscle protein synthesis. Now when we're talking about strength, and when we're specifically training for strength, we're improving neural efficiency, like recruiting more motor units, faster firing rates of these motor units, and overall better coordination. Neural efficiency just basically means how well our nervous system activates our muscles. When training for strength, you're not just training for muscle growth or for building muscle. You're training your brain and your nerves to fire faster, fire harder, and then fire more efficiently. So for strength, we have our brain. The lightning bolt represents the nerve signal, and then that will increase muscle contraction and overall force. When going over size, we have a little drawing of a bicep with not too much muscle size, right? Not too much muscle hypertrophy, but then as we build that muscle up, it gets bigger. These are our muscle fibers at baseline, and this is our hypertrophied muscle fibers. They are gaining size right there, and that's why we have the little pluses to show the increase in muscle hypertrophy, guys. Now let's talk about the actual differences within variables when talking about training for muscle hypertrophy, and then when talking about training for muscular strength. So this is where a lot of people get confused and try to overcomplicate things. I'm going to try to break it down in the most simplified way as possible for you guys, so let's get started. So the new research for reps for muscle hypertrophy basically says that anything between 5 and 30 reps, you can achieve muscular hypertrophy or muscular growth in size. However, it just has to be trained near failure. So those last couple reps just have to be near, close, or at failure. Strength training, however, that rep range lives in the 1 to 6 rep. That rep range lives in the 6 to 1 or 1 to 6 rep range because we are moving way heavier loads, typically way heavier loads for fewer reps. Now in terms of load, hypertrophy load is a broad range, anywhere from 30 to 85%, sometimes even 100% of our 1 rep max. But then again, the key is effort. And then for strength, we're usually around that 65 to 95% of our 1 rep max, maybe even 60 just to 85% of our 1 rep max. Sometimes also 100% depending on that certain block of our strength program. And exercises, we want 2 to 3 quality sets when we're talking about muscle hypertrophy. You can do quite a little more if you wanted to, however, that's really not going to do much because we're just hitting the same movement pattern over and over again, and that's why the same thing goes for if we are training for muscle hypertrophy. We do not want to be doing exercises that function in the same movement pattern. So for example, I'm not going to be doing a chest supported neutral grip row for my back and then going from that to a cable seated neutral grip row, because we're targeting the exact same muscles and the exact same movement pattern positioning, which is just not really doing anything except for just getting us trash volume. So when we're talking about this muscle hypertrophy for sets, make sure we just have 2 to 3 quality sets, and then obviously we're going to have more exercises because we're training for muscle hypertrophy, so our volume will be a little more than strength training. We just don't want to be training the same movement patterns over and over again, especially repeatedly one after another in a certain workout. Now for strength, we typically do around 3 to 6 sets with fewer exercises. So for example, if I'm benching for strength, I can do 1 top set, a few back down sets, that's 4 sets right there. Or sometimes if I'm doing more, not necessarily volume work, but not really doing a top set, I could have like 5 to 6 sets of bench for 3 to 5 reps. So we are increasing that volume, but our sets are going to be a little more greater, and then our reps are going to be down. So if I'm going to do bench, I can do 6 sets of 3, I could do 5 sets of 4, I can do one top set of 3 reps and then 3 sets of 4 back down. So our sets are going to be arranged usually around 3 to 6, just with fewer total exercises for that day. And for our rest periods, this can get a little tricky. For muscle hypertrophy, we want to aim for around 1 to 3 minutes of rest per set. If we're training for more of our accessory work, our rest breaks will probably be around 1 to 2 minutes, because we don't have as great of a CNS fatigue when we're doing like tricep push downs or anything with a cable or just accessory work. But if we are training compound lifts for hypertrophy like bench, squat, or deadlift, those are going to be more CNS fatigued. So we will want to aim for, around 3 to 4 minutes even. And then like I said here, it will be longer for compounds. So don't be afraid to take longer rest breaks when you're dealing with bigger lifts, because obviously we don't want to do a set and then not be recovered enough in time and then hit another set, because we do want to have an efficient rest break between sets to make sure we're getting the most out of each working set we do. And then for strength, when we're talking about rest breaks, we're going to aim for around 3 to 5 minutes. That can be increased, right? If we're in week 3 or week 4 of our block and we have a single or a double on deadlifts or squat or bench and our weight's getting up there and we're using more of our CNS, obviously we're going to want to take a big enough break, because we want our CNS to recover fully or as much as possible so that our nervous system can bounce back and then we can hit that top end load again. And then the last variable I'm going to be focusing on is focus. Focusing on focus. Anyways, there are going to be more variables we can talk over. I'm just going over the 5 that I think are most important. Mechanical tension is going to be the biggest driver for muscle hypertrophy, for growth in general within those muscles. This is just a pulling force our fibers experience, and then those mechanical receptors within those fibers send signals to the brain to be like, hey, we need to grow. Metabolic stress is also a key driver for muscle hypertrophy. This is just a buildup of byproducts within our muscles during intense, repeated contractions. This includes lactate, hydrogen ions, inorganic phosphate, and then cellular swelling, the pump, right? And then I included muscle damage. I guess research has came out saying that muscle damage is not effective at all for muscle growth. However, personally for me in my 7 years of lifting, I've done a lot of muscular damage to my muscles, and I obviously kind of know what I'm doing. So don't really focus on this one as much. If you want to be more scientific about it, focus on mechanical tension and metabolic stress. I just still like to include muscle damage. I guess the research doesn't or disproves that muscle damage actually plays a role in muscle growth, but I'm still including it. Alright guys, and then for strength, we have load. Obviously we want to train heavy loads because we want to increase more motor units within our muscles over time. And then we also want to focus on neuromuscular efficiency. We want to move these heavy loads efficiently as possible, which will help improve our neural output in general. So those are the 2 biggest takeaways for strength, for our focus. And then, like I said, mechanical tension is the key driver for muscle hypertrophy. However, metabolic stress, and I like to incorporate some muscle damage, man, And the final point I'm going to make about this topic is, can you train for both? And the answer is yes, and you should. You should blend a mixture of both focuses for muscle hypertrophy and muscular strength to have the best results. Obviously, if you're a powerlifter, you're not going to train crap volume or just do certain exercises that don't actually put a focus on our compounds. So if I'm training for powerlifting, I'm going to do bench, squat, deadlift, and then I'm going to do accessory work that is built and strengthening certain parts of those movements. So if I'm doing bench work, after my bench work, I'm going to do some tricep work to strengthen my triceps, especially if my lockout on bench is the hardest part, because that's where my triceps are going to be the most active, right? So in certain aspects, maybe you don't want to train them for both, but the majority of the population who just wants to get stronger in both sides, it is crucial to use both muscle hypertrophy and muscular strength. You can incorporate both into your training program, and if you need help with that, leave a comment below or DM me. I'm more than happy to help you guys. I obviously do also personal coach, so if you need a coach to just help you reach your goals for muscular strength or hypertrophy, send me a DM on Instagram, TikTok, or leave a comment below. But you definitely can train for both. So guys, the final takeaway here, muscle hypertrophy is all about building that engine. Strength is about tuning that engine to hit that max force output. So our final point we can make, strength equals neural plus load. Size is more going to be tension and volume. tension plus volume. So guys, if this video helped, be sure to drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and leave a comment what you want to prioritize. Do you prioritize strength? Do you prioritize muscle hypertrophy? Or are you a mixture of both like me? Also, leave a comment below for other videos you would like me to focus on or make. If you have a certain question about anything within weightlifting or nutrition or anything like that, leave a comment below and I'll make a video on it. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like always, I don't know, that's it, man. So thanks for watching. Hopefully this helped you a little bit, at least get a better understanding of the difference between muscle hypertrophy and muscular growth and how you can implement both into your training. See you in the next one.